Hi everyone, welcome to Rite Tonight. I'm your host, Kara, and this is our special guest, Michael.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about Michael's story, his pathway to recovery, and what he's doing now to stay plugged in.
Absolutely.
You want to start by giving us a little background about you?
Okay, well, I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Detroit. I'm the youngest son. Grandma had 6 grandkids. I'm number 4, so one of the youngest. And I grew up pretty much in a regular middle class family. We ain't rich, but we wasn't poor for real either. my my mom and my dad had separated from each other like when I was younger, and so like I grew up like without my dad until my stepdad came into our life when I was like 12. And between that time, I was always singing, from like early as I can remember, I could sing. Like I just knew like I was hitting every note that I on a big comfy couch and watching Beauty and the Beast and the Wiz and stuff. Like,
Awesome.
yeah, and I won a 4th grade talent show, and I sung in my church choir. We grew up, my mom and my stepdad are really big in church. Like they still like deacon and deaconess, like head deacon, like. And so like with that, like I was very involved in my choir. I was president of our choir, youth choir, Angelic Voices of Praise. Shout out to Angelic Voices of Praise. Hey Bob, what's up? But what else? I went to Detroit School of Arts.
Okay.
It's the school that Aaliyah went to. And from there we moved to Sterling Heights, and I went to Stevenson. Actually at DSA I was a vocal major, so I was in the male ensemble, vision ensemble, and
That's awesome.
sounds of DSA, which is the mixed chorale. And when I switched to Stevenson High School, I was in their show choir, the Satin Starlights, and that's when I got introduced into musical theater like 10th grade before I left DSA. And it was a community group doing Dreamgirls, and I had got my first casting in there as CC. He was like the second male lead.
Yeah.
And at Stevenson, the first musical I did there was High School Musical,
Okay.
and I was Troy Bolton in that one. I got casted into an all-state cast musical for Michigan State Thespians that was at Michigan State, and I played the lead in Fiddler on the Roof. It was like a knockoff or like a parody of all Broadway musicals. It was pretty funny. From there, I was the wizard. I was the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, and I auditioned for like college. I was a little bad in high school, coming out. Like my parents were like very, very like rejecting to my sexuality. So like we would have some really tough mornings sometimes, and then I would go to school and anybody could say like the slightest thing to me and I would just write them up and just pop off. And then it got to the point where they was like, you know what, we gonna just start, every time you act up, we just gonna send you home for 2 days. And so like by me missing so many days, I had good grades, but I was always spent out time at home, so like they took away some credits, and which caused me to not be able to like really get into a university without having to pay so much.
Right.
So my parents were like, well, you gonna have to go to Macomb Community College. So I was like, okay. I ended up hearing about the Macomb show choir there. They had it's a scholarship group. They pay you out every semester. And so I auditioned, I got in, and I did that for 2 years. And I majored as a vocal music performance major with a minor in education. And from there, after I did 2 years there, I was like, I don't really want to, I want to take a break from school. I found another community theater, the Black Box Theater, and I got casted into a musical, Rent. And that was like my first like professional gig outside of college. But I have to plug. I did some work with a label, an independent label called Mo Thugs.
Okay.
They were Bone Thugs and Harmony's label. That's their label. That's here.
Yeah.
And I was one of his singers named John Drama. Hey Drama. But yeah, like we had put us in a group, and we did a group song, and he was like, some of us, it was like 5 different groups, and we had a competition of whoever had the best song. The best 2 songs were going to be put on the radio.
That's awesome.
And one of my songs was put on the radio, so I was like, I heard myself on the radio for the first time at 20. It was
That's
amazing. Awesome. So that's when I really found like my love for like recording music and actually singing music and stuff. And I wrote my first song there. It was called "Get Your Shit Intact." That's so funny. But after that, like I just pretty much worked. I had this is like probably in my early 20s. I was working. I had my first apartment downtown, Lafayette Towers. I had a boyfriend at the time. Just living life.
Right.
My relationship with my parents started to get better as they started seeing me mature and grow into a grown man. They started to respect me as a man.
Yeah.
And between there, I didn't do any Broadway shows or any shows because I was working so much, and I was like, I really want to start singing again. My best friend from Marie Streety, she's a makeup artist, and she would do makeup for this artist. She's very popular in Detroit. Her name's Elise King. And she was like, you should sing background for her. And I was like, okay, so I shot my shot. I saw her looked up on Facebook. I sent her a couple videos of me singing, and then she tried me out. And from there, I moved to Houston. I was just up, and I was in between jobs, and I was just really just, what's that impulsive? I was very impulsive and very I want to do it, so I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I was also I was a smoker, smoking weed and drinking and stuff. So that impulsive behavior probably can, without thinking clearly, I was just ready to just go. I went
At that point, was it an issue for you?
It wasn't.
The weed and the alcohol, did that click in your mind hey, this might be an issue? Or was it just all in good fun at the time?
It was all in good fun. Yeah. Definitely all in good fun. And I never had no issues with just over drinking or, it was always just, family functions, we drinking, we passing the blunt around, it's just, leisurely.
Right.
I had my stuff together, so I thought,
Right.
So when I moved to Houston, I went to Houston Community College, and I was continuing my education in music education and with a minor in English. And I got accepted into Texas Southern University. But I was like, I want to come back home. I came back home and immediately started singing with Elise again. And from there, we the first time I sung with her was probably New Year's Eve. And then we had a gig on Live in the D on Channel 4.
Nice.
And Aretha Franklin was watching that morning. And she called the studio and she wanted to talk to Elise. Talked to Elise, told her that, she really enjoyed her performance and enjoyed us. She was like, y'all, I can tell y'all all grew up in church, which we did. All of us grew up in church. And she booked us to open for her last concert.
No way.
Yeah. But we were on Live in the D because Elise had booked a concert to open up for Bobby Brown.
Okay.
So we were promoting that show, and that show turned into us opening up for Bobby Brown, Drew Hill, Kelly Price, and Next. And so just being around that atmosphere, it just felt like home. This is what I want to do. And this is 2017. So from there, we were still gigging around the city, and Pride season came up, and we were singing in Capitol Pride in D.C.
That's awesome.
We sung in not Portland, Oregon, but Central Oregon's Pride.
Yeah.
We did Indiana, Fort Wayne's. We did Detroit, and we did a few other downtown Detroit festivals and things. So at this point, I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do this on my own. Like, I don't want to be background no more. Like, like, I really enjoyed that experience. But, like, I was like, I want to do this for me.
Spread your wings a little bit. Yeah.
And so 2018 was the year I was like, I'm going to start this. I'm going to start doing this. And from there, like, I released a single, which is out on all digital platforms, called Say You Love Me. And that was doing pretty good. And from there, I would get like crazy little weird singing gigs. Like, someone asked me to sing for a demo, sing the Star Spangled Banner, and it cut me a check. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is nice. Like, I came in and I had to sign a W-2, and I'm like, what? Okay. So, like, and I performed at Motor City Pride that summer as myself, and I had an hour. So I was like, y'all want to give me a whole hour?
That's awesome.
So my first was like, that was when Beyonce did Coachella. So all my friends would call it Mike Chilla. And that was good. And I got casted into 2 musicals that summer. I got cast to another cast of Dreamgirls from a Canadian company. And they were going to do the show here in America, but the tickets wasn't selling, so they ended up canceling the show. But they casted me into one of their shows there, and which is the cast of Hair. And I was HUD. I was like 3rd male lead. And that summer I was constantly, like, I was working, and then I'd get off work, and then I would meet the 2 other guys who were in the cast with me, Martell and Dwight. We would cross the border every day, like clockwork, going there and going to rehearsals for like 4 or 5 hours, and it never felt like work. Like, I was never tired. Like, I was always excited. Did that show that September. I got casted into an opera at the Detroit Opera House, the Detroit Wagon show, and I did that in October. And from there, I was like, okay, after I did that, I want to put money into my production. I really want to make more money, so what can I do? At this time, I was working as a nurse assistant, so I was like, why don't I just try to get into nursing school and become an LPN? And I went through the process of applying, had my letter of recommendation signed, and after that, I had to take a HESI test. And I prepared for that. And this time I was kicking it with this guy, he was like a friend with benefits, he was really like a friend though. And the night that I passed my HESI test, he was like, we gonna celebrate, woo, woo, woo. And he introduced me to this thing called Tina. He was like, I was like, what is it? And he was like, well, it's something that's gonna, like, it make you horny and make you, like, it increases our sexual experiences or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I want that. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Who wouldn't?
Right. And so I tried it, not knowing what I was trying was meth. But I was like, this is cool. Like, we had a blast. I had a blast that night. A blast, I tell you. And about a week later, I got the acceptance letter, and I didn't get accepted. So I was like, oh, like, I really felt bad about it. Like, I did everything I needed to do. I passed my test. Like, damn, why didn't I get in? They was only picking 16 people, and it was like over 100 people applying. So, like, that night when I found out I didn't get in, I was like, I called my friend, like, yo, let's do that again. And then we started doing it again. And then, like, from there, like, something happened between him and I. And I've seen a whole different side of him that I never thought I would see. And we never really spoke again after that.
Do you think, like, was he like a constant user?
After the community is small, so like after that happened between him and I started to like look for it myself and started noticing how everybody knows him.
Yeah.
That's when I found out, like, yeah, he's been using.
Yeah,
so, like,
there's more to that
story. It was more to that story. It wasn't something that, let's just try it. Like, he's been doing that. And
when he introduced you to that, and then you kind of, like, went searching for it, did you ever have the thought, like, this is going to become a problem? Like,
nope.
Did you see it down the road, or was it just like, I'm going to do this to kind of cover up the way I feel?
It wasn't even trying to cover up the way I felt. It was just that it was fun. Like, I thought I had fun. Like, the things that I was doing and the way that it made me feel. Like, I was like, I wanted that again.
Like a party drug.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it is. It's a party drug. They say you want to party, they call it party and play. Oh, I'm spilling tea. I am spilling tea. But yeah, like it was pretty much just that. Like I just wanted to have a good time, but I didn't know that. I didn't realize as me, it was a habit that was progressing.
Yeah.
Like I kept chasing it. And it got to maybe like that was November, December. When I got to like April of 2019, I was about 20 pounds lighter, behind on my car note, not really paying my bills, switched jobs. Like I went from working as a nurse assistant to working as a server because I wanted to get quicker money.
Yep.
And I was like, I never tried that, but like I have charisma and stuff. I can do that. And so like I started serving and started like that's when I started using like every time I was
cash.
Yep, I started using every time I was off. I would be off and I would be using, and then I would try to sober up before going to work, and then that's when I started realizing like, damn, like this is hard. This started getting harder.
One of them habits that you got to maintain.
Yeah, it started getting hard because then I started neglecting paying my car note and all the things that I really needed to do. I neglected it because I wanted that feeling.
Yep.
And later that summer, like I got to a point where I wasn't working at the restaurant anymore. I didn't have any money in my pocket. I didn't have no gas in my car. My brakes was scrubbing hard as hell, and all it took was somebody to go online and ask me if I wanted to party, and I found the way to get to him and party. And I came home and I was crying the whole way home, just crying like, why am I doing this? Like something is wrong.
Did anyone like in your family or your circle of friends start noticing the change in you and like try to point it out to you?
They never really tried to point it out to me. They just noticed my absence. Like I started becoming like distant from them because
they weren't using.
They weren't using. They wasn't the people that was using, and so like I didn't want to be around them. Especially like when I was using, I didn't want to be around the people that knew me for real because, this was a secret.
Yeah.
At first.
Right. And I feel like a lot of addicts go through that in the sense of, okay, that's how I was. Every time I'd use, I'd disappear because I knew A, they were going to call me out on my bullshit.
Yep.
And B, the people that maybe really didn't know how badly it was, they'd find out eventually, and it was just like, hey, you're not using, and I want to associate with everyone that is using.
Yeah, I did let one of my closest friends, no, she's still my closest friend to this day, Jasmine, I did tell her that I was trying something and I like it. And a situation happened. I was hanging with a drug dealer. That was another thing. When I went to go look for drugs, every time the drug dealer always wanted me around. They wanted me on their hip because I was looking good, but I had a car, I was doing all of this. So like they latch on to people like that. And once you turn into an addict for real, then it's like they turn you into a customer. And so I fell into that trap. But one time, I was I let him drive my car and I was riding in the passenger seat, and he went to go make a sale and whatever, and the Southfield police rolled past. And he was in the hotel for about an hour, and I was just in the car just like waiting on him. I didn't really care. But the police came back and they were like, shined the light into my car, and the next thing you know, 15 police cars just came out of nowhere.
Yep, they rolled deep.
And like, they searched my entire car, and at this point, I'm scared as shit because I'm like, I don't know if he left his stuff in my car or whatever. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Was that your first, like, real experience with the police?
That was my first real experience with the police, and they were searching my driver's license. They seen I didn't have nothing on my record, and they seen my certified nursing assistant license in my trunk, and the officer really tried to say a word to me. He was like, we didn't find anything, but we know it's something going on, but because we didn't find anything, and we looking at you don't have a record, or and I see that you're a nurse assistant, like, do you want to be a nurse? And I was like, well, at the time, I was like, I do. He was like, this road that you're going down right now is not it for you. He was like, and he really tried to speak that into me. And I heard it, but
you didn't listen.
I don't even think that I listened. Addiction is, I didn't know nothing about addiction. So like, I didn't know that it was just gonna be like, really, like, I hear that, but then it didn't matter to me.
Especially in the beginning stages of an addiction, a lot of people have said, like, oh, so-and-so would say this to me, or my family would say that to me, out of genuine concern, like, hey, we know where you're headed, because they can see it, but we have blinders on. All we're thinking about is what's next,
Right.
So.
Yeah, but so, like, that's when I had told my friend, like, I've been doing this, and I told her what happened with the police, and she cried. She literally cried. Like, Michael, like, do you know what you're doing? Like, do you know how bad that could have been? And just to see her crying about that really showed me, like, damn, like, now that I think about that moment, like, I see that hurt. I hurt everybody that loved me in that way. And, like, I never really talked about that. Like, now I'm kind of getting choked up because it's like, I love my people so much, like everybody, and like, I really do feel bad that I put them through so much because of my bullshit,
Yep.
But I'm doing what I gotta do now to take care of that. But let's continue the story. That summer when I realized that I was driving with my brakes scrubbing and didn't have no gas, I came home that morning, and I just told my mom, like, yo, like, I'm going through, like, I tried something last winter, and I don't know what's wrong with me because I keep going to it. And, like, after having that conversation, like, I felt the weight drop me. And they were like, my mom and she called my stepdad, and it was like, well, first thing we got to do, we got to put him in rehab. So I packed up a little bag and went to this grimy rehab in the hood, like on Linwood. I think it's called Amherst.
Okay.
And I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it was like, not only was it a rehab, it was a halfway house for people that's just getting out of prison. And it was just like the people there were just so not to say like we are all addicts.
Yeah.
But it's, for me, like, I'm not, like, a person that went to jail or went to prison or, like, robbing people and shit like that. Like, that was never none of me. Like, but I was surrounded by so much of that. And even the people that would come in to speak to them about the things they did, like, I literally could not relate to them. Just how the way that they spoke about things and stuff, like, I couldn't relate. And I called my parents like maybe 3 days after being in there, and I told them, like, I don't feel comfortable being here.
Right.
And I told them I want to leave, but before I could ask, like, can we find somewhere else for me to go? My parents just started yelling and cursing, like,
thinking you were trying to get out of it.
Yeah, like, thinking I was trying to get out of it, and they told me, don't bring my ass back home. And so, like, with me reacting to that, I said, fine, I'll show you better than I can tell you.
Yeah.
And I was out here. And I don't think I lasted 2 weeks after that being sober.
Oh.
It came right back.
Yep.
It came right back.
And usually worse.
Yeah. And at this point, that's when I started using needles.
Okay.
And it went from just smoking it to using needles. And it really just was like, it was an escalation. Like, it was escalated, but at the same time, I was able, like, something in me was like, you gotta work. And I was working. I got another serving job. I worked at a culture cafe downtown, and it was like, I was working. I was doing good at my job because I had to, because at this point nobody's taking care of me, and the whole family know I use meth now. So like, really, didn't nobody want nothing to do with me because they don't understand it. They just heard Michael using this crazy drug that everybody heard something bad about, so they didn't want to. They didn't know how I was. So like, I felt really lonely, lonely and really miserable at the same time, because like, damn, like, I felt like this is my lowest, and nobody is trying to at least see if I'm okay, you know?
Right.
But, eventually, like, I had to move back. I had to go to my parents, like, because I didn't have nowhere else to go.
Right.
And my mom took me in. She gave me a hug. And I was like, I wasn't using as often as I was before the rehab trip, but when I used, I was using, okay? Yeah. But after staying at home with mom and my stepdad, like maybe like 4 weeks after moving in, I started using again. But this whole time I was still like, I would think that I could smoke weed or like drink, and it'd be okay. And it never was. Right. But then I would eventually use meth. And I found another job at an office. This is probably prior to COVID. And I worked Monday through Friday. So Saturday and Sunday it was up.
Yeah.
And I was doing that for 3 months straight until the pandemic happened.
Yeah. I feel like the whole pandemic, it went there, you know.
Well, really, the pandemic was
for all of us.
I
had active addiction.
Yeah, I was in active addiction, but I really was just at home all the time. Yeah. It was just me and my mom, so it was like, I guess I was like unconsciously doing better. Was your relationship with your mom, like when you moved in and she, you know, you were open and honest with her about your use? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it brought you guys closer together with you living there? Because now she kind of had a sense of what was really going on. Not at that point. Me and my mom was like this. We're always going to be like that, regardless of what goes on. Like, we may have a moment, a stat, but like, that's, you know, my mom is like my best friend.
Yeah.
So, like, it was always that between me and her. Now, me and my stepfather, not so much. Yeah. Like, that's my dad. Like, I love him, but, like, certain way that he view things, I don't view it. So, like, it always causes tension between us. But we love each other very deeply. But it's just not how me and my mom relationship is.
Yeah.
But if that's who I spent most of the time with at COVID. He's a postal worker. They're retired now, but he was always going to work still, so it was just always me and my mom during COVID, and we would go grocery shopping with our mask and our gloves, scared, but just do what we gotta do. Like, and we spent a lot of time together. But I didn't start using again until that stimulus hit. Yeah. When I got that stimulus check, baby, the first thing I did was book the hotel room, and I used. And then the world started to open up more that summer, and then I started using more frequently. Yeah. And that August, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I am tired of this. I'm tired of this same old shit. Like, no matter where I go, even if I went to Chicago that summer and I was using the whole time in Chicago, like, no matter where I go, I'm going to use. I spent a week, like 6 weeks in Mount Pleasant with my best friend Ashley. She let me stay there, and about 2 weeks there, I ended up finding some meth and started using there. Like, it was just no like way you could separate me from it. And so I went to rehab at the Salvation Army Harbor Light.
Okay.
I completed that for 3 weeks, and I did so much work. Like, I dealt with like traumas that I've never really dealt with, and with that being said, my family, when first weekend I was out of rehab, my family threw a party, my cousins, and you know, waited up. I didn't realize that weekend I relapsed because I took a drink. Yeah. I took a drink. I was like, we were celebrating. Everybody was happy for me. Everybody was telling me I was looking better and I felt better.
Yeah.
And not knowing that I really wasn't better. I had some like consistent clean time, and I done some inner work on myself. So like really the inner glow was showing more than anything.
Yeah.
But I was drinking, and then I started smoking, and then eventually like I went to California and I relapsed.
Yeah.
And then I had booked another gig that October in Atlanta, and I didn't use when I came back home, but when I went to Atlanta I used again. And in my head I'm like, I can only use it. I'm out of town. That's it. That's it.
Finding anything
I'm just trying to be like, I'm just gonna use it. I'm out of town. That's it. But after that, I really dove right back into the habit, and this time it's worse because I'm on unemployment. I'm getting all this money twice a month, and I ain't doing nothing but getting hotels and getting drugs.
Everyone was saying how great it was that everyone was getting the stimulus money, but at the same time, not only I was affected, I did the same thing.
Right.
Same thing. All that money gone just for drugs. And I know a lot of people that, same thing. It made it easy to be an addict right now.
Exactly, because we was just sitting at home getting paid.
To get high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it was like, that happened for I had unemployment for a full year.
Yep.
And after that year was up, I wasn't using as much because I didn't have the money to. And by then, all the relationships that I had with different people that I could use for had all ran to hell because addicts ain't thinking right. And how can you maintain a healthy friendship relationship when we all using that?
Right.
Like, it's just not possible.
Now, when you were like using it, the worst part of your addiction, were you like up all the time, days and days?
I would be up
out there.
I would do like, by the time, I think the most I did was like 4 days straight up. And that fourth day, like, I would always pass out and then wake up scared as hell, like, where the hell am I? And sometimes I would be in my car or like just at somebody's house, which is really dangerous. And I lost a lot of debit cards. I lost my ID at least 7 times. I didn't lose it. Somebody took my shit. Like, I had to replace my driver's license so many times. It's ridiculous. Like, and that's me being naive to the world of addicts too. Like, I didn't know that all these people are really hurting, and they want to see you hurt too. Like,
misery loves company.
Yeah, like, even though like I would always like, even I have a bubbly personality, and I would still have that bubbliness to me, and people hated that. That was not my circle. That was not my circle of people. They hated that shit. They did not like somebody that always look at the bright side of things, or like I wasn't like always trying to shade people. Like, how we all doing drugs and y'all talking about the same person and y'all do the same shit? Like, it just does not make sense. And the math is not math in here. It's not math.
Right.
Like, I could never get with that. And even there, why am I neglecting my real friends to go around these people? Insanity at its finest. That's insanity. Like,
absolutely. So at your lowest point, what was it that made you say, like, enough is enough, I gotta go back to rehab or get clean?
Well, one of my friends who I haven't been seeing for a while, she got murdered in July She got murdered by her boyfriend, and my friends came from Chicago and Atlanta we all came together to bury her. And the first night we came to the candlelight, like, that's from me being around them, I knew I was not myself. And they all knew what I was going through too, and it's just to see them look at me in the way that they looked at me then versus how they used to look to me 10 years prior to that, it really stung at me. Yeah. And one of them, Kim, she was like, after the funeral, she was like, "So we gonna go to your funeral next?" And yeah, like it didn't hurt me like in a way of hurt my feelings. It like made me really look at life.
How they're looking at you too, like they're scared.
Yeah, it was like that was like the biggest eye opener to me, because me and Kim always had, like, we haven't talked in years, but like that was like my everything, like, friend, like, and I took our friendship for granted a lot. But for her to tell me that, even after years of us not speaking and stuff, it really struck a chord with me. And at first I was so sad, because I came to the funeral off of a binge of partying, and came to the funeral, and I was just already, when you coming down off of meth, you get depressed and stuff. And then the funeral itself, burying her, like,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and me and my ex-boyfriend were talking about it, and I was telling him, like, I'm just tired of fighting. Like, I'm really just tired of fighting.
Yeah.
And I was at a point where I was like, I don't know if I tried rehab, I tried all of this, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't stop it. Like, I'm really feeling like I'm at the point where I'd rather just let it take me. And after, like, letting that out and then thinking over it to myself, I feel like I really heard God say, like, Michael, if you left this world today, would you be pleased?
Right.
And absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. Not like that. Like, all the stuff that I was doing prior to me using, and to die like that, absolutely not. So one of my sisters found me a peer recovery coach through this company class.
Okay.
And at first she was saying, like, she told me about the Salvation Army downtown. It was a 6-month program. You go to work. You go to work therapy. Blah 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 blah. And I was like, 6 months. 6 months.
I feel like it's a life sentence.
And did feel like it was a life sentence, but after a while, like, I was starting a job as a server at Nicola's, and the second day, I didn't like how the manager was talking to people. Like, even to, like, me outside of addiction, I would not work for that man at all. So, like, that second day when he tried that with me, I said, oh no, you can pay me my money right now, because I ain't about to do this. But then, as I was sitting down, I was like, this is God's way of telling me, like, Michael, go get yourself some help.
Yeah.
So I called up that peer recovery coach, and I told her, like, I'm ready. And that Monday, which was August 14th, I went checked in the treatment there, and at first it was terrible, because I ain't used to people being strict like that with me all the time. Like, they're strict, yes. strict.
Yes.
And I did not like it at first, but as I started doing work therapy, I was working at the Salvation Army store in Southfield.
Okay.
And they immediately seen my worth immediately, because I used to work at different clothing stores and stuff, so I know about fashion a little bit, So they, like, immediately started using me in ways that, like, they wasn't using everyone else.
Right.
And that gave me a boost. And then, like, doing the work, like, I grew up in church, so I definitely believe in God, and I know God is real. And I would even preach to some people in our addiction, just trying to help them, knowing that they were sad and stuff. And I'll be feeling the same way too, but sometimes you got to mirror that, But just me growing my faith, and then truly, like, surrendering everything to God, like, it started to get better. And then by me being president of my choir and directing them sometimes, like, I would be strict, like, teaching parts and stuff. No, it's not that. No, do this way. And then, like, when I correlated that to what the Salvation Army was doing, that, like, they're just strict because they want us to be great in life. So with that, it really started to get easier. And I got to, like, 60 days. And then 2 weeks that week of my 60 days, I was getting off the bus. They allow us to go. And I was getting off the bus coming back to the center, and this guy who I used to use with dogs just ran up on me, you know, because they know me.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, hey, you know, like,
here we go.
yeah. So then, like, I was like, what are you? He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I was about to head back to where I'm at or whatever. And he was like, you want to come up and talk? And at first, I'm like, I don't know. But then I went up there, and this is where stuff gets tricky. And this is a lesson that I really needed to learn. So he was telling me that he's an outpatient, and this is before I even told him I was in rehab.
Right.
But he can see it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, after 2 months of not using, you know you look different. Yep. So, like, he was saying how, like, I'm an outpatient, and I'm tired of that life, and da-da-da-da. And then I felt like, okay, I can open up to him about what I've been doing for the past 2 months. I'm at the Salvation Army right down the street, you know. I'm doing good too. And, you know, like, so he was like, yeah, maybe we can, like, on your days, you can hang out and stuff, we can hang out. I went over there the next day, and he was really feeling down. So, like, I was writing, like, I told him to write some, like, list of goals and, like, things you want to work on with yourself. Like, basically trying to use the things that I was learning in therapy at the Salvation Army to help him.
Right.
And it was a good day. Then I helped him clean up his house. He was listening to gospel music, praising the Lord and stuff. And then the next week, I went over there, like, thinking that everything was cool. Right. And it was that day. The next week, going over there, that's when I learned a valuable lesson. I got to be careful because people that's early in recovery, I wish you the best, you know, like, yeah. But, like, especially people that I used to use with, like, yeah. I can wish you the best but I can't allow myself to get too close to you because if you relapse, I'm going to relapse. Yep. And that's exactly what happened that weekend. I went over there and his whole demeanor was different. And we started having sex. And right after that, he asked me to go get something out of his bedroom. And lo and behold, a bag of meth was sitting right there. And in that moment, how I used meth and how it was, like, I have no clothes on and I'm ready. And I see that. In my head, I heard myself say, put on your clothes and go. But I immediately blocked it out. Yep. And I grabbed the bag. And I used right there. And after the high, literally an hour and a half later, I was just sitting there like, what the fuck did I just do? Like, why
Guilt
did I...
takes over, like, what am I thinking?
Now that I know better, it was so, like, it was such a, like, why? Like, why did I do that? Why did I do this? I was so embarrassed, I didn't even return back to the Salvation Army that night because I was just so, I couldn't face nobody. I was so disappointed in myself, and I knew that it was going to be a disappointment to people there because they was really rooting for me. They was truly rooting for me, and I messed up. But I ended up, I was walking and I ended up seeing this security guard in this building, and I was just like, I gotta get something off my chest. Can I sit and talk to you? And I think God sent him there because I needed to talk to somebody. We couldn't have our phones. So I had my phone. I was walking around downtown sad as shit. And I talked to him, and he was like, I told him what I was going through. I told him what I did. And he told me he had just buried his nephew that last week, who was the same age as me, 31. And he was like, he don't have a chance no more. He was like, but you still here, you still living, and you breathing. And you know God, because I was telling him about things, and he was just like, what happened last night, it happened. What you gonna do from this day forward? Because he was like, it's a whole new day today. What you did last night, it don't take away from all the progress that you made. Right. He's like, you actually learned a lot. And he was like, and the fact that you even sitting here talking to me, a total stranger, about this, and it's showing, he's like, it sounds like you learned something. And I was like, you know what? You kind of right. But so like that next morning, I called my peer recovery coach, and I told her like, girl, I messed up. And from there, I was like, what do I do? Because like I really don't have nowhere to go, and like I want to be able to like, you know, do what I need to do so I can get back on my feet. Well, then she was like, well, you're going to have to go back to another center. You're going to have to go to another treatment center. And you're going to have to complete it so you can get funding to stay in a 3-quarter house.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. I had no hesitations, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what I had to do. And that's when I realized that I really have changed, because if I would have relapsed like that a year ago, I would still be out there using right now.
Yep.
But the fact that I accepted what I did, confessed it, and actually didn't let that stop me from doing what I needed to do for me.
Forward, right?
Yeah, so like the only thing that changed really was my clean date, but I learned so much from that moment. Like before then, I thought I could help people that are like that I used to use with, but it's a way that you could help people without being too close to them like that. Because just like I said, as soon as you can relapse, I can relapse with you. You're not gonna put a bag of meth in front of me and think I'm not about to use it. You just not. I'm not there yet, and I know that now.
Yep.
So now it's boundaries set. I can wish everybody the best, and you know, pray for them like I pray for myself. But I'm serious about this. Like I am so serious. Like after being, I did 2 weeks there because they was like, you don't need 3 weeks. You're fine. You just had to mess up, and we just, you know, I had to work on forgiving myself for that. And being there taught me some things that they didn't focus on at the Salvation Army, like relationships with family and like how to.
Where did you go back to treatment?
I went to Eastwood.
Okay.
I went to Eastwood in Southfield. And they do a very great job at just really looking realistically at relationships in your mind.
Yeah.
Salvation Army, very spiritually based.
Yes.
So like I honestly feel like I came out on top because not only did my faith get back intact, I learned a really valuable lesson that I'm glad I learned in the moment of me not being able to, still having to use resources like this, because I would have hated to get to where I am today and be put in a situation like that and relapse. Like, now that I have a job and I'm working and stuff, and my relationship with my family is so good now, like, I would hate to have had to learn that lesson now. So I'm glad I learned it then, and it really worked out. So now we're here. I'm employed.
That's awesome.
My mom and my stepdad, we are all like, we're good. And my whole family are looking at me with a little sense of pride, you know. Even friendships that I haven't really been communicating with, they are all coming back one by one, and without even me even like really having to try. They see. It's like it's really a reflection, like, and I'm really happy for that. I'm just really not taking nothing for granted, and I have a home group of CMA Anonymous, which is Crystal Meth Anonymous. I say CMA Anonymous. CMA, which is Crystal Meth Anonymous. I have a sponsor there, and like they're really a good group of guys. And like just this past meeting yesterday, they asked me to join the board.
Nice.
So like now, like,
got a purpose in that.
Yeah, I have a purpose in that, and it's like it's only gonna keep growing.
Right.
And just to see like people come in, you know, who have like more clean time than, you know, just to see like how scared they are or just like, you know, nervous they are, is like, it's necessary. It's definitely necessary to keep going so we can be examples of letting them know that like you can do this. Because I didn't see nobody on this side of recovery in the gay community using meth.
Right.
Either they dying, they going to prison, or that's it. Or they still using. That's it. That's all I seen. So like me being exposed to this and seeing like married couples coming together and it's just really something that I thought I would never see, that I'm really grateful for, and it's like really helping me stay on this path.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What else do you do now that you're on this path? Is there anything else that you do that keeps you plugged in besides like the meetings and things like that?
Well, I'm making music again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I just recorded a song 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to be dropping it on all digital outlets next Friday.
Awesome.
And the song is called Get My Life Back, I'm Ready. And it's really just a testimony of all that I've been through and how I got through it, and me just really declaring that, like, you know, I'm ready to get it back. Like, yeah, like, that's it. And just being encouraging to somebody else that may be listening to it, going through what I went through.
What is some advice you would give to someone that's struggling and doesn't really know? They know they have the problem, but they don't really know where to go from there.
Well, I would say, honestly, there's a lot of resources out here, and if you really are serious about getting help, I would just be like, just call somebody, but like somebody knows something, you know. Mm-hmm. There are like groups you can call. Like I know Class, if you look up Class Agency, they have resources for people that want to get help or want to go to rehab. So like if you Google them, it's just Class, CLASS Agency, and really just give yourself a chance, honestly, because you never know. Like, it is so much greater on this side than it is there where you at right now. Like, it really is. And if you just give yourself a chance, I promise you will not regret it.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your story. It was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, that's it for now. Tune in next time.